Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Fire 5 at Phoenix. It is our last recording episode today of this month's topic of the mind-body connection. So if you've not tuned into these before, I'm Zoe. I'm the coach here at Phoenix Life and Wellbeing Coaching. These are recorded live with a different guest each time. The kind of theory of this podcast is that the guest brings the questions to me, and I haven't seen the questions before. So we get a really great variety of guests in, whether they are subject matter experts in their field. And we've also had some listeners come in and ask some questions as well. So we've had some great guests along the way. Today, I am joined by Emma. Emma is going to introduce herself in a moment, and she's brought with her 5 questions. As I said, I haven't seen them, so always intrigued as to what questions come in and the conversation that follows. So thank you for listening and watching. Hopefully the conversation this morning will have lots of hints, tips and advice that will be useful to you. But that's enough from me for the moment. Emma, do you want to introduce yourself? Tell us who you are, what you do, and a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, firstly, I think you're very brave answering 5 questions that you've never seen before. I promise I've been kind. So yes, thank you for having me. My name is Emma Rowett. And just to kind of give you a bit of background, I started out my career as an IT management consultant in the city with a big 4 company, worked all over the world, climbed the corporate ladder, loved it for the most part, but burnt out. Got really, really poorly about 10 years in, not from one particular thing, but just a combination of smaller things, and that compound effect really kicked in. I got really ill with adrenal issues, hormonal issues, thyroid issues, and I went down a path of functional and medicine and naturopathic nutrition to help heal myself because I wasn't really getting anywhere with traditional allopathic treatments. So that set me off down a route of really thinking about what I was putting on my skin and in my body. And I really started to research that. And then a really good friend of mine and work colleague at that consultancy had started a business with a brand called Arbonne, which is a product-based health and wellness business. She asked me to take a look at that business. I said no. But I did really understand the value and the principles of what they were offering, because I knew I needed to really reevaluate what I was putting on my skin, in particular like sun cream and shampoos and conditioners, all these nasties that are in them. So I started using the products. Fast forward 3 years, I was still in that corporate job. That burnout was starting to come back again, and I knew I had to make a change, because if you change nothing changes. So I said yes to building a business alongside her while still working my corporate career, and I built that business, that health and wellness product-based business, to a level where it allowed me to go down to part-time consulting. But in the last 6 years that I've been doing that, a year or so ago, I decided to re-qualify and kind of go through a complete career change into the world of naturopathic nutrition. So I am now studying to become a certified naturopathic nutritionist with the College of Natural and Integrated Medicine in the UK. It's something I've studied for years, but I feel like I've now got to the stage where I actually want to, I guess, make it official. And so my mission in life is ultimately to change the health of this planet one person at a time. I just think there's so much that we can do to add health to people's lives. And when it comes to it, people know what they know. And there's so much out there that people don't know about how they can make tiny little changes that can really boost their health. So that's where I'm at now. I still run my Arbonne business. I still help people build their own businesses, and I help people get healthy with Arbonne's products. I'm studying to be the naturopathic nutritionist, which I'm just so passionate about. I love it. And I still do some freelance part-time consulting with predominantly companies that are a force for good and I've got an interest in. So I pick and choose and work between the 3. So kind of crazy life, but I love it.
Lots of variety in there, isn't there? But the underlying values are very similar across all of them. Well, thank you for your time and coming in today. And I think it's been, and I think picking up on what you said there, the sort of natural treatments, natural approaches, I think, we've talked over the last couple of episodes on this topic about the combination of, the sort of Western medicine, Eastern medicine, of natural medicine, how we can look after ourselves just by eating well, sleeping well, exercising, all of these things. And like you said, people know what they know. They go by what they know. They go by what's worked for them. But there's a lot of information that is still not out there in the general public, isn't there? And it's how to get that information out to be able to help people. But I think from my perspective, give people the options so that they can make a choice. Because I think that's what's important for me, is that people have that choice, but you need the knowledge to be able to make an informed choice, don't you?
Yeah, and that's what I'm passionate about, is around the education. I'm never there to scare people, I'm there to educate. And I think when you can make things quite, one of the things I'm working really hard on is to simplify concepts and to simplify stories and experiences and scientific information, so that people go, okay, that's what's in that, that's where that's come from, and then they can make the intuitive, mindful, educated choice on what they do and don't put in and on their bodies or their children's or their families. And it's about helping people be intuitive. So if you want to go down to the fast food takeaway place and grab whatever it is, know what's in it, be okay with that, and enjoy it if that's what you want to do. But at the same time, know where your carrots come from, know where your apples come from. And you have to pick and choose your battles, because obviously you could go down a rabbit hole where you become so consumed and obsessed by what you use. And really, for me, it's about that balance. We can't be perfect in every choice that we make. So we have to make the choices and the sacrifices that work for us. And that's different for different people.
And as with many things, there isn't always, it's not necessarily a right or a wrong. It's making the best decision for you at that time, and different priorities and different options and choices, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah.
Fantastic. So I am intrigued. Excuse me. I am intrigued as to where the conversation is going to go this morning. So you've got 5 questions.
I've got 5 questions. I'm going to start with a fun question.
Okay.
So my first question is, if you were deserted on an island for a week, let's just call it a week, and you have access to water, okay? You have some water.
Okay.
What would be the one food that you would take with you enough to last you a week, and why?
Oh, good question. I don't know, actually. It's really interesting. I'm trying to think of the things that I would, I don't know. So it's really my mind's just gone back to, I went to India when I was probably about 15, 16. And so I was in India for about 3 weeks. And I remember really missing cheese and coming back and just eating cheese pretty much in every possible meal, to the point then where I went completely off cheese. I kind of go in cycles of different foods. I really like variety, but I find sometimes it's, especially when you're busy, it's more just a case of something that's easy and accessible. There's part of me that thinks if I was on an island, I would really want to make use of and be quite adventurous as to what's there, the fish and vegetation and things like that. But what would I need to bring with me to help? Cheese. Which is really funny, because I'm actually lactose intolerant. So cheese is not always a great...
lactose free, but
Yeah, the lactose-free cheeses are really good. So we tend to have that here. But I want to put, I think seasoning, salt, pepper, and seasoning.
Have you ever tried cashew cheese?
That's my final answer. So the salt, pepper, and seasoning, and then I would want to be really adventurous with what I can find and have access to on the island. There we go. Final answer.
Oh, nice. A good answer.
Not cheese.
Not cheese.
Not
you
cheese.
can have cheese.
I tried
cashew nut cheese the other day, and that was delicious. You ever tried cashew nut cheese before? Oh, so good.
No, I've tried cashew nut ice cream.
Cashew nut cheese is very nice.
Okay, I'll add that to the list. What would you take?
I know a lady locally that sells it. I would take the egg. Because the egg has every vitamin and mineral in it, other than vitamin C, that you would need to survive. A, D, K, E, it's got cholesterol, fats, carbs, you name it. I will take the egg, because there's a lot you can do with the egg.
The egg is probably the one reason why I think I would find it difficult to eat a vegan diet, because the egg is not replaceable. The cheeses are all replaceable, the milks are all replaceable, the egg not so much. So yeah, that's a good answer too. So your egg and my seasoning.
I might just take a chicken that lays eggs. That might be an easier option, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, mine would be egg.
I like that.
Yeah, the eggs. I think sometimes the egg gets a bad rap, and it shouldn't. Eggs are just amazing. So if you get a good egg, that is not a bad one.
Yes.
Shall I move on to my second question?
Yeah.
Okay, so going back more to kind of mind, body, skin connection, that's really what I focus my mind, body connection questions on is. When you hear the phrase, and I know this is more mind, body connection, but when you hear the phrase mind, body, skin connection, what immediately comes to your mind when you hear that? What does that make you think of?
It makes me think of the marketing of skincare, skin products that tell you that there's all these nutrients in their skin cream, skincare, skin lotions. And a lot of people focus on that when they're buying skincare stuff, but they don't look at how they can actually consume that. Yeah. So they'll look at how they can, they'll look to find the way of, well, I need to have that because that's really important for my skin. But they'll think of it from the outside absorption rather than the eating and absorption that way. So I think the skin element for me is how our skin can be significantly impacted by how we eat and how we live. So I have mild eczema, and I've had it since my teens, and actually a lot of the time it doesn't show up, but it shows up when I'm stressed. It shows up if I haven't slept enough. It shows up if I'm not getting enough rest and downtime, so separately to sleep. And it also shows up if I have periods of time where I'm not eating well or I'm not drinking enough water. So I know for me that the eczema is my trigger sign of you need to slow down, you need to start paying more attention to what you're eating and go and get yourself some more water. And that quite often will take control of it. But I know, you have lots of conversations, don't you? Or you see lots of marketing around skincare that lists all the vitamins that it's got. And people can talk about the vitamin. Oh, that's a really good vitamin. It's very good for your skin. Yeah. Okay, how do you consume that in your diet?
Yeah.
And I think that would be where I would love to change the focus in helping people to eat the nutrients rather than from the outside in. Inside out rather than the outside in.
Yeah. And I would say people come to me quite often and say, do you have some recommendations for something for eczema or acne or psoriasis or rosacea? And yes, I can recommend lotions and potions, but ultimately the mind, body, skin connection is if you fix the insides, your gut, which is from your mouth to your bottom, it's the whole way, the whole system, then, your skin is your largest organ. So if you fix your gut, your skin will present as it should, and mind as well. If your gut isn't happy, your mind isn't happy. If your mind isn't happy, your gut isn't happy because it's connected through a nerve, which then has an impact on your skin because your skin is there to protect your body. We sweat things out, we take things in. It's all, in my mind, completely connected. And I always say to people, when they've got, especially when they've got really bad cases of a skin condition, be it rosacea or acne or eczema, is sort your gut out, get tested if you've got the channels to do that, because quite often you'll find parasites or gut flora imbalances or leaky gut, that if you fix that, the skin condition clears up, gets better. It doesn't necessarily go away because it depends on your medical history and whether you're genetically prone to that type of thing. But yeah, it's all linked. It's all completely linked. And like you say, there's just so many clever marketing programs out there now that will say, if you use this cream, it will reduce your fine lines and wrinkles. And it's like, well, it might do a little bit, but actually, you can do that from the inside. You can do that with the way you think, what you consume, both mind and food and drink, how you move. So yeah, I think I'm hoping that people are starting to latch on a bit more to that. But same as you, we need to
Yeah.
change the face of that marketing campaign, which is a cream will fix everything, because
well, marketing is a very powerful tool, isn't it, in terms of the information that we take in. And I think the information that we almost unconsciously take in, because it is everywhere and that messaging is everywhere. And I think we absorb that information not necessarily consciously, or take it or questioning it or critiquing that information or putting it into context. And I think marketing of information about food, marketing in how these skin cares and things like that, I think yes, it's a real challenge, isn't it? Because I think especially that's where the young people are taking in information. And I think
people trust brands. You see a brand for a cereal and you think, well, that looks healthy for children. And then actually, not until you do your digging, you realise, and that's one of the things that I really like to do with education is you buy it off the shelf unconsciously. So, you don't really think about it. You're like, it's good for your heart. It's got fortified vitamins and minerals, And you don't really then, well, that clearly you think, well, that's good. Surely that's good. And it's not until you get sit down and go, well, hang on. Where was the grain grown? How was the grain treated? How was the grain processed? What are they taking out to add back in? And then you look at the sugar and where did the sugar come from? And you can go down a rabbit hole with it, but ultimately the marketing is there to encourage us to trust in brands, and it's really our responsibility to an extent. I mean, I heard somebody say the other day in America, you should just vote with your dollar. If you don't buy these things, then they have to make a change, and that's easier said than done, but it does make sense. Okay, my next question is, what are your thoughts or opinions on the links between the food and drink that we consume and mental well-being?
I think it's a very strong link. And again, it's one that we don't always pay attention to. And I saw something, I think it was at the beginning of this week, a personal trainer had shared a post on Twitter, I think, about how younger people, sort of the university generation at the moment, a lot of them are stopping drinking, and not necessarily teetotal, but drinking a lot less. And it was linked to also, the pubs and places reopening, and how a lot of people over lockdown have started to drink less, and it's changed habits, and how it's sort of the benefit for things. And I was talking to somebody about it, and I was saying how actually a lot of the people that I've worked with have actually stopped drinking, because whilst they enjoy a glass of wine or a gin or whatever their choice of drink is, the knock-on impact the following day, and we're not talking about hangovers, we're not talking about drinking large amounts, but a lot of them are reporting increasing in anxiety and lower mood that following day. So even though this isn't, we're not talking about going out on the lash and having a massive hangover, they're just talking about even just a glass or two on with a meal, and actually the impact that's having the following day. And a lot of people are using that to make the decision to drink less. And I think a lot more people are paying attention to choices of food. I think, again, another benefit of lockdown, that people have been at home. So they've been home and been able to prepare meals rather than what's available in a canteen or what's available in the local shops. I think people have been able to make better decisions for them about eating at lunchtime and stopping, coming away from the desk and eating. So more mindful eating, I think, has made a big difference. So I think there have been, there's been a few benefits to lockdown, and I think that has been one of them. But I think how we eat has a huge impact on how we feel. But it's that cycle, isn't it, of when we eat, we feel better. And so quite often we can be more physically active. That impacts our mental and emotional health. And sometimes we feel better, and so then we want to be more active. So it's that, I think this was the conversation that I had with, I think in the first episode on this topic, is that it's one of those areas where I think you could draw the line in any direction and connect the dots, and it all has it all has that impact. I know that when, I have certain foods, I feel more sluggish, more lethargic, that sometimes it can impact my sleep.
Yeah.
It can certainly impact energy levels if I go to the gym, or sometimes it can some things just give you that slumpy feel, don't they, where you just then don't feel like doing anything. So I think sometimes it's that, for me, it's making that connection when I'm making the choice, because the information is there, isn't it? It's there in the back of your head, but it's that question, and it's a question that I get people that I work with to ask themselves of, okay, is this an emotional choice of this is what I feel like I want, or is this the more logical choice of this is what I know my body wants and needs, and having that variety and making that choice. And like you said, it's making an informed choice, isn't it? Is I know that if I eat this is how I will feel, and I know if I eat this is how I will feel. I think one of the key things for me is looking at the consequences of that decision, because quite often when that decision feels positive, the consequences aren't as positive, potentially more negative, and vice versa. Sometimes we make a decision that is a harder decision to make, but the consequences that follow are a lot more positive. So it's thinking ahead of, this is how I feel in the moment, this is the choice I'm making in the moment, to think what will happen beyond that. And so making that sort of, bringing that perspective into making that decision. But I think what we eat and what we drink, even things like getting enough water, being hydrated, has a huge impact on focus and concentration, and getting rid of that brain fog just by being hydrated. It's such a simple thing to do, but again, it's knowing the impact that has. But I think also paying attention to the impact, like you said at the beginning when you were talking about your history with working in the corporate world, of that burnout and the overwhelm. It's very easy, isn't it, to just keep going, or just keep going until my next long weekend off or my next break, rather than saying, okay, stop, what's going on here, what small changes can I make that will start to have that impact. It's that what small changes can I make that's going to have that ripple effect to help me feel better.
Yeah, and you see it quite often. I saw it, and I was one of those people that, I'd work and get to like the Christmas break, and then I'd get ill, because that you're in that state of fight or flight the entire time. Your body is in a constant state of stress, and so when you then relax, rest and digest state, your immune system's almost like, I'm done, I can't cope. So many people, and I still sit and I work with these people all the time, stress is good. We need stress. If you don't have stress, you will die, because we have to have stress. But stress is like, you've probably heard the analogy, it's running from the proverbial tiger. You're not going to be running from a tiger for days, weeks, or months. You might run from a tiger for a couple of hours, maybe minutes. You're either going to get killed by the tiger, or you're going to kind of escape. And then so your body literally is like, all hands on deck. Immune system, stop, put your tools down, stop what you're doing, stop eating, stop this, just survive this tiger. And then once the tiger situation is dissipated, the stress goes away. But we all now, well, not we all, that's a sweeping generalization, but people live in this chronic state of stress where they don't ever get out of that state of stress, which causes disease, which is the word disease. And then you see disease. And I used to be the person in the corporate world, and I never thought this was bad. This is the thing. People only know what they know. I was so consumed with my job. I loved what I did. I partied hard. I didn't even know I got to work some days. But my I can remember looking back, like on a typical day, and there's no good or bad here. There's not good foods and bad foods. I don't believe in that. You can put it in your mouth and it comes out the other end. It's food. But I would get up and I would have a Starbucks skinny latte and a skinny muffin for breakfast, and then I'd probably have another cup of coffee mid-morning because I've got a coffee meeting, and then lunch I would eat things like Muller light yogurts, the diet ones, and Snacker Jacks, and a Diet Coke, then have another coffee or another Diet Coke in the afternoon, and then in the evening I'd go home and have a bowl of pasta. So I wasn't overeating. In fact, I think I was probably undereating.
Yeah.
But that I wasn't fueling my body in any way that gave my body the nutrients it needed, the energy it needed. I was just living off stimulants basically. And I remember going into work about 4 years ago and seeing this lady at 7:30 in the morning, and she was only about 27. And she, on her desk, I'm not kidding you, she had a coffee, a Red Bull, and a Diet Coke all lined up at 7:30 in the morning. And this is when I'd already, started to make big changes. And it wasn't for me to kind of go up to her and say, well, what do you think you're doing? I was like, that's exactly where I was. That is exactly what I used to do, because you have to get through. You have to get through the day, and you just don't know what you don't know, because that's going to give you that energy kick that you need. And it goes back to the sleep. When we drink copious amounts of caffeinated drinks, whether it be tea, coffee, energy drinks, whatever it might be, with lots of caffeine, it really disrupts your sleep cycles. You don't get to bed at the same time. You don't wake up at the same time. You're looking at your phone before you go to sleep. It all adds, and you've got your hormones all out of balance. It all adds up. And I think I never knew that. I didn't have a clue that was.
No, I didn't. I think I was in my 30s before I started to become aware of any of that. And I did the same. I was telling my son the other day about, because he'd gone out and gone into work the next day, and I said, I remember when I used to do that regularly, and I'd sit there with, I remember I didn't have the Diet Coke, I had the full fat Coke, a banana and a Mars bar. And that was my first thing in the morning hangover cure, or not enough sleep cure, because I worked shifts. And so and I think I don't want to make a sweeping statement, but I think, for shift workers, because you're not getting that sleep cycle, so it is disruptive to your energy levels. And quite often shift workers are, they work in busy environments, so actually a scheduled lunch break very rarely happens, so you tend to eat on the move, which impacts your digestion. And you don't always have time to plan what you're going to eat, so you end up grabbing what you can, what's accessible. You make quick, fast choices, your quick energy release and caffeine. And, that doesn't fuel somebody who's working in that busy environment. But again, it's making quick choices, isn't it? And it's not always knowing, or not always being fully informed in actually the difference that certain foods and certain drinks can make negatively and positively.
Yeah. And it's inflammation, stress will cause that inflammation in your body, but foods, and I think sometimes it doesn't even, you can look at what, if I go back to my days of, drinking a lot of Diet Coke, in isolation, you can have a Diet Coke. If you want coffee, I drink coffee. I've just had a coffee this morning, but it was the amount that I was drinking, and it was the types of foods and drinks that were triggering that inflammation in my body. So, overconsumption of the glutens, the processed dairy, the sugar, alcohol, caffeine in the wrong form. Caffeine is good for you if you get it in the right form, in the right quantity, you drink it at the right time of day. But it was just this over inflammation on my body. And then what that does is, when your body is inflamed, you don't even really, it's not like it's on fire. You're just like, oh, I'm in inflammation. But what then happens is, your lining, your gut is just, the lining is just going. And then the food is getting into your blood system, into your circulatory system. That then passes the blood-brain barrier. Things like gluten bind to your opiate receptors in your brain. That's what creates the brain fog, that type of thing. And no one's going to, people aren't educated to make those connections. Why would they be? And then a number of people I talk to who say, I've just, brain fog, lack of energy. And I was like, if you just make these really simple changes and shifts, not forever, but just start them off, I'd say start them off, so you're cutting those things out if you can, then gently bring them back in. But if you cut them out, if it's like, 30 days, 60 days, you'll notice the difference. And then I would say to people, you just don't know how good your body can feel until you feel it. And it's making those tiny shifts. And like you said, we are a nation of people that grab on the go. And predominantly, if you turn over the packet of anything that you eat that's come from a packet, the three key ingredients will always be a form of sugar, disguised, a form of soya lecithin, soy, and gluten. And those three combined, those three are not separate, have them. But when you start having them at every meal, cereal and toast for breakfast, cheese and pickle sandwich for lunch, pasta and sauce for dinner, you kind of look at it and go, wow, this is my diet is like got 20 ingredients in it a week.
Yeah.
And we used to be a world that, you know, consumed 700 to 800 different foods a year. And now we're down to like 50 or 60. Because,
crazy, isn't it?
you know, the industrial revolution and just the way that agriculture is now done. We don't eat the, again, sweeping generalization, some people do, but we don't eat the variety of foods that we used to eat because we're all busy, and we all work. And, you know, back in the day, I'm not saying we go back to this, but women, not so many women worked. So they were at home to walk down to the grocers and boil up this and make that. We're not anymore. So who does it? We don't have time. So actually we want the convenience, but it's a catch-22. So it's like I said at the beginning, you've got to find the things that you want to focus on. You cannot do it all.
And this is the thing that I quite often get people to do is just to keep a diary for the week. So don't make any changes, just keep a diary for the week, and just really pay attention to your energy levels, your sleep, how you feel, your mood, you know, the mood swings, like how in general, how is your food? And then just look at that food and drink diary to see, you know, so I get them to look at the foods that they eat, what they drink, water, alcohol, any activity that they take, when they have, you know, gone to bed and woken up, and then just to then look at that 7-day picture. And for me, because I like to focus on the positive of, you know, what days have felt better. Look at and highlight what did you do differently on those days that helped you to feel better. That's what you want to do more of, and focus on increasing what they know works well for them. And then eventually that decreases the things that don't work so well for them. So it's the same outcome. It's just from the lifestyle perspective, looking at that bigger picture. But just again, the first step is always pay attention, isn't it? Pay attention to what works, pay attention to what's not working. And like you said, you know, what can you start to change? And I like the approach of find out what's working and start to do more of it, because eventually that drops off the things that aren't working. It replaces the things that aren't working, and that's something that works well with a lot of people.
I think, and I would add to that, I mean, I don't know if you get people to do this, but going back to the mind connection is, what are they consuming before they, I mean, I'm thinking like social media, TV, newspapers, magazines. I had a client a while back, and she was suffering from terrible insomnia and bad dreams, and she was eating, we were, you know, eating wise, she was getting there, doing all the right things for her body. And so I was like, do you watch TV before you go to bed? She's like, yeah. And I said, what did you watch? What do you typically watch? Because I love a couple of hours of the real life A&E program, like where they're actually, it's like the documentary about being working in A&E. It's like, let's not watch that for a few days. Just see if that makes it. It did. It made a huge difference, because she was going to bed consumed with quite graphic and daunting and sad, not always happy thoughts in her head after the show she just watched. And I said, that really, even though you think I'm talking garbage, that will have a huge impact on your sleep. You know, if you want to watch it, maybe watch it at 6 p.m. rather than 10 p.m. and then watch something else that is a bit more lighthearted, or meditate before you go to bed. And by that I mean put some music on and just let that send you to sleep if that's what works for you. It was, like you said, because we nutted out what she was actually watching before she went to bed, or reading or scrolling, whatever it is you're doing, you know, that there was no connection there. She's like, I don't know, I keep getting these nightmares. And they weren't nightmares about the program, they were just horrible nightmares. Your brain is, you know, you're feeding your mind things that are probably not going to relax you before you go to bed.
Well, I mean, in a similar vein, I get people to lie in bed or sit before they go to bed and think of 3 things that have gone well for them that day. Like 3 things that have been a positive, to help them to, especially for people who really struggle with that, settling their mind down before they go off to sleep, or, you know, the overthinkers, the people who worry, that works really well. Of just lie in bed or sit next to your bed, really focus on slowing down your breathing, and then just recall 3 things that have gone well today, 3 things that have felt good today, 3 positive things, just to help you get into that relaxed, settled, and just calm the mind a little bit, put it into that positive state before you kind of rest into sleep. But yeah, lots of people hit the pillow at 60 miles an hour like an emergency stop, don't they? But
yeah, absolutely.
That's a whole other episode in itself, isn't it? And we did sleep. We did a month on sleep and rest.
Yeah.
So for anybody who is struggling in that area, feel free to scroll back, because we did. There's a good 3 or 4 episodes on sleep and rest, and some sort of food, physical health ones as well. So great question.
Yeah, when you eat what you eat before you go to bed, you know, with my clients, I really advocate for them to have not every day of the week, because we've all got social lives, but wherever you can, 12 hours between meals. So if you eat at 7 p.m, do not eat again until 7 a.m. the next morning. So you really give your body the time that it needs to digest, to process, to rest. The rest and digest is there for a reason. But when we're still eating things at 10 o'clock at night, and then we go to sleep, and that could contain something that's quite, stimulating, sugar, caffeine, whatever it might be, then that has a massive impact on sleep. So again, it goes back to the mind and your ability of your brain to dream, and just to dream well, but to shut down. So okay, I'll go on to my next question, which we kind of talked about a bit, but dive into a bit more detail. Do you think there is a movement towards making the connection between the food and, let's talk, products, would be skin products, consumption and mental health, or do you think it's going the other way? Do you think that, based on your line of work and what you do you see more people becoming conscious of it, really? Or do you feel like it's the people that are interested in it that actually...
I'm not... I think the challenge is, if I look at the connections, and the conversations I've had in the last 12, 18 months, I would say there is an increase in people becoming more aware. And I wonder whether or not my perspective on that is skewed, because the people who I work with have become more aware, they're more self-aware, they're much more focused on working on themselves, making changes, making improvements. So they are more aware, but they're also more aware in general, and that's why they're working with me. That's why they're making changes to work on themselves. So it's that skewed picture, isn't it, of that percentage of people who are paying attention, trying to do things to make positive change for themselves. And I don't know that necessarily is reflective in society as a whole. I think there's lots more out there, isn't there? I think the great thing about social media is that it's not filtered. It's also the negative thing about social media is that it's not filtered. But what it does is it does take away, doesn't it, some of the filter of marketing, the filter of mainstream media, propaganda, and all of those. Again, another topic of discussion in itself, but what it does is it puts a lot more information out there, which is a positive, and it can also be a negative because there's too much information out there. But I think what you talk about different movements of paying attention to what we eat, where that food has come from, how that impacts the environment, how that impacts the way the world is working for now and in the future. I think there's a lot more information out there over looking at our oceans and where our fish is sourced from, and the impact of pollution into the oceans that impacts those food sources, the impact of GM and things that are modified, and what goes into the crops, and the speed in which we're trying to process and have perfectly shaped bananas and apples, and putting wax on fruit to make it look more attractive in the supermarket. All of these things that I think mainstream media marketing don't want us to know particularly. Whereas I think that unfiltered social media, people talking about it, is a lot more frequent now. I think it's a lot, if you want to see it.
Well, yeah.
And I think
that's where we forget that we see our feeds and we assume that everyone else sees our feeds, but they've got their own feeds. And I did
Yes.
a training the other night on nutrition, and I was talking about carrots. And I put 2 pictures of some carrots on the screen, and the one picture was like the Bugs Bunny carrots, you know, the carrots with the green tops. They were dirty. They've been pulled out the ground carrots. And then the other picture was a bowl of those little tiny like baby carrots that you get. That almost like they look a bit like Wotsits from a distance. They're like the perfectly formed, shiny little tiny baby carrots you typically get in a packet, or you can get them in a can. And I said to people watching, I was like, you know, here's a picture of carrots and carrots. Which one's a carrot and which one's not? And they're like, well, they're both carrots. Like, well, technically they are both carrots. I said, but these carrots have been grown in the ground, pulled out the ground. They've still got the dirt on them. These carrots are one of 2. They've either been genetically modified in a greenhouse to create them, because carrots do not grow like little tiny things like that. Or what they've actually done, I did some research on this, and this is a real thing. The carrots that come out looking wonky and, you know, no one's going to want to buy and whatever, they mush all that carrot down, put it in machines, and then they pump it out and shape it and mold it to make the little perfectly formed carrot. And technically it is still a carrot, but, you know, then you've got the shininess and they're all perfectly formed, and you're like, well, what's it? And it goes back to nutrient density.
Yeah.
Look, carrot is a carrot, so there's no good and bad. But if you look at the nutrient density of the Bugs Bunny carrot, and you look, or they're called heritage or heirloom carrots, aren't they? And the nutrient density of the carrot in the packet that is the perfect shape, great for little kids, there's a big difference. And people, I still do sometimes, go into supermarket, you don't bat an eyelid, ask carrots, get some carrots, get some apples. Those ones are shiny. I'm going to get those ones. I'm not going to get the dirty potatoes. Get the dirty potatoes. Because why would you want a dirty potato? Get the clean potato. Then you have to clean it. And people, you know, again, it's convenience. But it's sometimes it's not even that. It's not even laziness. It's just what we have grown up to do. It's just what you do. You buy a bag of potatoes that are all clean. You might give them a quick wash, but they're kind of clean. It's just what we're
doing. It also comes down to even how it's positioned in the supermarket, isn't it? Of, you know, what's on what shelf and what's in our eye line and what's presented to us when we walk in, and how it's packaged, and all of that stuff. Yeah. And it is changing, isn't it? It has become the norm, and it has become therefore something that we don't give energy and focus and attention to, unless you have chosen to do that.
Yeah. And I was genuinely thinking this the other day in the supermarket. You walk, typically in the UK, you walk into the supermarket, and the first section that you come to is the fresh fruit and veg aisle. And it's normally like one aisle, or it's like an eighth of a supermarket. And then the rest is just aisles of food that is not, you got the deli counter at the back, but is not fresh. It's cans, packets, boxes. Yeah. And it wasn't until I stood there, I was like, wow, 1/8 of this supermarket has fresh produce, maybe 2/8. The rest is, I'm not saying that's bad, because, you know, eggs come in a box, and, you know, there's rice, and but it just kind of blew my mind as to how much food we consume that, you know, could somebody, if I quizzed them, how was that made? Where did it come from? Yeah. Would you know? And yet we're all so worried about, you wouldn't put diesel in an unleaded car, and you wouldn't put unleaded in a diesel car because the car wouldn't move. Yeah. But we're quite happy to do that with our bodies. Same with drugs. You know, I always use the body as a bathtub analogy. You know, if you imagine your body as a bathtub, if the drain isn't blocked, you put things in, it comes out. Put things in, it comes out. If that drain is blocked, the bath will overflow. If your real bath overflowed in your house, the first thing you would do, I'd hope, is you'd turn the tap off so that it didn't keep overflowing. And then you'd get a mop potentially to mop up. But with our bodies, we don't turn the tap off. We go to the doctor, we get the pill or the cream, which is the mop, and we mop around the problem, but we carry on consuming what it is. Yeah. That's what I'm seeing. What more and more people I work with is like, well, I'm on this pill for this and this pill for this. But why? Why do you have that in the first place? The root cause of the problem here, because all that's doing on the whole, not always, medication is required, but on the whole is masking the symptom. So why do you have the symptom in the first place? And, you know, and then the gluten-free aisle is a classic. People do need gluten-free options if they're celiac, or I'm gluten intolerant, but you go down the gluten-free aisle, you just turn the box over and you read the ingredients and you go, I have no idea what that is. But it's gluten-free, so it must be good. You know, it's because the marketing and the the free from aisle is there, and you're like, wow, it's free from aisle. It's brilliant. This is what I'm going to go for.
And I thought I had a gluten insensitivity. I was tested for celiac and was okay. But I think for me, it's not the gluten. What I found was it was actually all of the things in those products that help keep it fresh,
preserved
for longer. It's all of the preservatives and the additives. I don't tend to do it now purely for time, but and also because it doesn't keep fresh and stay fresh for very long, but to make my own bread. And I'm absolutely fine on that, no response at all. But that's because it's, you know, it's made, it hasn't got all of those things in it. So I think that's the thing for me within packaged food is it absolutely has its place in today's society. But it's when you look at the length of the date, if it can sit in your cupboard for about 4 years, possibly possibly there's a few things in there that we as humans are not necessarily designed to be able to process.
That's the thing, our bodies have not caught up, and they won't catch up with the way in which food is now processed and manufactured. You know, that is ahead of, I think it'll always be ahead of where our, you know, our bodies, what they can, you know, whole foods. I always say, if you can pick it, catch it, kill it, shoot it, you can eat it. And gluten-free stuff is a great, there are some good things out there, don't get me wrong, there are, because I use them, but the number of people that I see that need to eat gluten-free for various reasons, they then still experience or start to experience a lot of the symptoms with IBS and leaky gut and SIBO and skin conditions, because what they're replacing that gluten-free, that gluten option with, like a really good artisan baked loaf of bread, right? But it's got gluten in it. So they go to the gluten-free aisle and get their gluten-free bread. And it's got the fructose, the corn syrup, the sugar, the soy lecithins, you know, the E this, the E that, the things you can't even pronounce. And all that's doing is just increasing, it's stopping the gluten reaction, but it's increasing the inflammatory reaction. And people then get lost. Like, well, what do I do? I can't eat that. So what do I eat instead? And it's, again, it goes back to educating, back to the education, not the scaremongering of there's plenty of things you can eat. There are plenty of things, but you are going to have to commit to making some changes. And that really comes down to what's important for you. What do you value more? And
I think also not, you know, don't change everything. You know, don't feel, I mean, for some people that works. For some people that blanket change, kind of cold turkey, works for them because they find it easier to shut it all out and then start again. It doesn't have to be that way. You can just pick one food and say, right, this, you know, I'm going to eat less of this and I'm going to replace it with that for this week and see what difference that makes. But, you know, like I said before, for me, it's about finding what works and do more of that. And then eventually that will then start to replace things that aren't working. But it is making informed choices about what you're doing more of, so that you're not replacing one problem with another.
And that's exactly what I say. So let's focus on what you can eat, not what you can't. Because as soon as your brain goes back to the mind, as soon as you start to think about deprivation and diets and what you can't have, you're on a losing streak. But you can focus on all the great stuff you can have and all the great stuff that's working for you and that you can do. I've had clients, you know, coffee is a great one, where their coffee intake to most people would seem quite excessive. To some it wouldn't. You know, if you're on 12, 15 cups of coffee a day, that to me is quite a lot of coffee. But for that particular person, and for me, I love a coffee, but what we got to at the end of a program was not never drinking coffee again. She went from 12, 15 cups a day down to 3, and then replaced the rest with water and other things. I was like, that's success. That is absolute success, because she realized how much she was depending on it, how habitual it had come rather than necessarily the addiction. And when she was doing it, she caught when she was doing it. You know, it was when we were in offices, you know, it was always, well, I just meet people at the coffee machine, have a chat. And so I just make another coffee and I make another coffee. And it was affecting her sleep and it was affecting all sorts of things in her body. She wasn't necessarily making the connection because it was keeping her going. I was like, I'm not saying don't have coffee. Let's just work together to get your coffee down. Because you'll feel so much better. And let's focus on what you can have instead. and it worked.
So it's also then enjoying it, isn't it? It's rather
it's
than habitual. And I love my coffee in the morning. I will fight you to keep my coffee in the morning, but it is part of, for me, it's the waking up, it's the sitting, it's the quiet, it's the smell, the taste. But that's it. I have my 2 coffees in the morning, and then I get up, and then it's water pretty much for the rest of the day, and that works well for me. But it's paying attention, isn't it? If it's working for you, great. We're talking about the things that are having a negative impact. We're not talking about taking all of the good stuff away from you. That we're talking about changing the things that are having a negative impact, so that you can have the good things and feel better. But I think sometimes it's that deprivation feel, isn't it? You want to take this away, and it's like, no, we want to replace it with something that helps you to feel better, and that is still enjoyable for you. This is not a punishment,
and not one size fits all. There isn't one way of eating. There just isn't. And that's why, when people they get benefits out of juicing, or they get benefits out of keto, or they get benefits out of whatever, calorie control, whatever it is for them, if they genuinely flourish on that way of eating, and they don't come across like it's death and it's hell, then I'm like, go for it. If that works for you, then do it. There's not one right or wrong way. There's things that are dangerous, and I would probably advise against certain things based on that person's background, health, or whatever it might be. But on the whole, you've got to find the thing that works for you, and that could take a while, but eventually you'll get there if you're committed to it. So,
and that goes across all areas of life, isn't it? Is this positive for you? Is this having a positive impact?
Exactly. And are you enjoying it? You get one life, so you want to enjoy it. Okay, so my last question.
Yes.
Going back to food, I guess food and drink is quite a tricky one to end on, but again, in your opinion, what would be a small change that could have the biggest impact when it comes to food and drink, in your opinion? People that you could give people advice now, what would be the one small change that they could do that would have a really big impact?
It's water that jumps to my mind. Drink more water.
Yeah.
Because I think that has so many benefits. And I think that's it's such an easy thing to do, isn't it? Put an open glass on your desk in front of you. Have a bottle of water when you're out and about that you carry around with you. But just increasing your water intake helps with, it does reduce hunger. It will help increase your focus, your concentration, your energy levels. It helps everything function in the way that it's supposed to function. It has that cross section of benefits, doesn't it? But it's so easy to do. It's an incredibly easy habit to fall out of, but it's also something very easy to do. We're coming into, she says, on day 2 of sunny weather in the UK. We're coming into that time of year where we should be increasing hydration because of heat. But actually, it's a good time of year to make sure that you carry enough water around with you. So I think that's the easiest thing, is increase water. There's lots of food changes that you could make, but I think water is the easiest thing. It's the smallest stone with the biggest ripple for me, is to increase your water.
And isn't it like 70? I don't know what the exact stat is, but isn't it 75% of our body is water? So you need to be replenishing it all day long. Yeah. I would agree. I think the biggest change is water. If I had the second one that's related to food, my food one would be, wherever possible, whenever possible, eat foods that don't have a label on them.
Yes.
Because if you do that,
I am fully on board with that. If it's that whole food element of, if you can, I like the 80-20% kind of ethos of 80% of what your body needs to function properly and at its best, and 20% of what you enjoy and what food and drink.
That's exactly what I do.
Element.
Exactly what I do. Yeah.
And so 80% whole foods of things that have got that nutrient density, that's got the vitamins and minerals that you need, and then 20% of all of the things that
pizza and wine and chocolate cake. Why not?
in that order.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you wouldn't want life without it, but it is about it's doing what is needed before what is wanted.
And I think if people,
which is a great analogy for life, really, isn't it?
If you can get into that 80-20 way of, let's talk food or drink, what then happens is that has a ripple effect on the anxiety and all the problems that people, and the guilt and the shame that people feel with food.
Yeah.
Because if you're eating whole, I'm not going to say eating well, because I think that's a good word, but eating whole foods without like predominantly without labels on 80% of your week, then when you do indulge in sticky toffee pudding with clotted cream and vanilla ice cream, or whatever it is your thing, it goes back to this, God, that was just really nice, I'm done, I don't need any more of that.
Yeah.
I had it, you know, and that's kind of where I always try and get people to. It's like, get to a stage where, going back to your thoughts around positivity, you know, how your body's going to feel if you fuel it right. And then if you do have something that potentially is not fueling your body right, your body's equipped, your body is a set of systems. You put chocolate cake or pizza in your body once in a while, it can totally deal with it. It can. If you're doing it every single day, that's when the drain gets clogged and it overflows and you're like, oh, my body can't deal with this. So when you do then have it, you enjoy it, you savor it, it's delicious. It's enough to get you through, because the rest of the time your body's used to eating the whole foods, and then you don't wake up the next day or go about your day feeling like absolute hell, because your body's systems are working, the cogs are turning, they're well oiled, and they can process that food in your body and do what they need to do with it. And I think some people think, like you said, it's like all or nothing, so I can never have that again. So you can, of course you can.
And I think that's a positive, healthy relationship to have with food, isn't it? Which I think is what so many of us who've ever had a negative relationship with food or an unhealthy relationship with food is what we're all still striving to achieve. And it is possible.
Oh, absolutely.
But it is, you know, it's time, effort, and energy, isn't it?
And it's a journey and it's a lifestyle. It's not a 30-day or 10-day quick fix. You can do those types of things if that's what you need to do. But ultimately, it's about lifestyle changes that you enjoy. When you make those little changes that you really enjoy, it just becomes the norm, and you just don't go back. You don't go back.
My question to people is often, do you see yourself being able to live like this in 12 months' time?
Yeah.
And if the answer is yes, we are good. We are on a good track. If the answer is no, okay, what do we need to change?
Yeah, completely.
What a great note to end on.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Amazing. Thank you so much. The time has gone very, very quickly. Thank you so much for your time. What great questions, and a really, really interesting conversation. I know there is lots in there that people will be able to take away. We will put your links in so that people can come and find you on the different platforms and get in touch with you if they've got any questions. Same for me. If people have listening, watching this back and have questions for either of us, do feel free to get in touch. More than happy to have a chat and see where we can help. Thank you so much, Emma, for your time. Thank you for listening and watching. This is the last of the 4 on this topic, so we will be back next week with new topics and new guests. But thank you, Emma, again for your time. Thank you for you guys watching in, and we will see you all very soon.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.